The state of tanking in WoW has been mixed, to say the least. We just saw the other day some buffs come in for tanking damage, and I don't know if that really solves the problem. I think Blizzard's trying to address the aggro issues that a lot of classes besides Prot Pally have right now by increasing our DPS. Right now, I play Blood DK, been playing it for like 7 years, and this is probably one of the worst states it's been in a long time. I can't hold aggro worth a shit. But here we go. Let's see how Dorky feels about the current state of tanking for this season and what it looks like going into next season.
Yo, what up? Dorky here. Started playing a bit of PTR, and we're probably a few weeks out to the patch hits. At this point,
man, the voice level of this man is just, it'll tickle your taint.
Tank changes are looking finalized, and dungeons are close to done. Let's start off with talking about how tanks have felt in general on PTR. Compared to Season 1, I'd say tanking has been a huge improvement. During PTR,
that's good. Blizzard... I mean, compared to Season 1, it can't be any worse, that's for sure. I don't know why the fuck Blizzard nerfed tanks the way they did for Season 1, but I'm glad to hear Season 2 is heading in the right direction.
Upped the health values on mobs in dungeons while not affecting the damage we take from mobs. This leads to a more healthy M+ scaling, where mob damage isn't scaling as crazy, leading to the really dangerous tank one-shots we saw in Season 1.
Yeah.
Blizzard has also taken drastic measures to reduce the amount of tank busters throughout M+. However, there's still inconsistency from dungeon to dungeon. Some dungeon trash or bosses are way scarier than others, and I expect this to be resolved by the Season 2 launch. Now for the problems. Right now, tank damage is awful. They buffed threat generation, so aggro
okay, he may have not seen the buff. This video may have been made just before yesterday. So yesterday, basically, all the tanking specs got a 20% buff across the board. I think Prot Paladin and Demon Hunter Vengeance Demon Hunter got a 15% buff to their damage, but overall, was it 20 for them too? It was 20% for the most of them. 2 of them got 15. One of them was Prot Pally. I can't remember which one the other one was, but they buffed the damage across the board for him.
Been a problem, but our damage is very lackluster. To some tank players, this is fine because it means there's less to worry about, but for me, I find doing damage as a tank to be fun. I enjoy contributing and optimizing my damage to have a meaningful impact on our group's kill speed. We are seeing record low damage relative to DPS.
Yeah.
When I'm playing with good DPS players, I'm doing as low as 30% of their damage. Part of the reason for this is because of the tier sets being garbage. Getting one of your major defensives as a random proc has to be one of the worst ideas and provides very little to no offensive value. Tanks are also still weak.
He's right. I mean, that's certainly something that's concerning when your tier spec is giving you a bonus to your defensive abilities. That's not going to help at all. And the reason why Blizzard did that shit is because they made tanks so damn squishy. I don't know what the philosophy was behind those changes at all. Like, let's take away the one thing that makes tanking fun, your ability to survive. Yeah, let's do that and see how that plays out. Well, it didn't play out very well. So, yeah, and then on top of that, typically tanks, their DPS will become, better as the patch goes on because of their gear and because of, like, some special weapons, like how we got the gavel back when Shadowlands was a thing from the Jailer, right? That was a big boon for my DPS as a Blood DK. There hasn't been any of that, really, in this expansion at all. So you've just been dealing with basically limp dick, noodle dick DPS from your tanks.
At the moment, our sustain continues to be weak from the nerfs that happened before the expansion launched, and tanks still get hit pretty hard. There are just a lot less one-shotty moments for tanks. Tanks still can't stay alive the way they did before Warfin. If anything, I'd say this was probably the intended vision Blizzard had back in beta. Personally, I'm still not a fan of the direction Blizzard is going with tanks.
Not either.
But I can understand what they're going for, and there are tanks and healers out there that do prefer this gameplay. Another problem with Season 2 dungeons is how many nasty dots and debuffs there are, making it real hard for certain tanks like Prot Warrior. So, to start off with how the tanks are looking, we'll go with our classic tier list.
Ooh, we're getting a tier list.
Demon Hunter.
Okay.
This is one of the few tanks that actually got improvements going to Season 2. The changes to feed the demon and having 2 extra seconds on demon spikes is massive. You can sustain perma spikes and spec into last resort while having major capstones like eliminate sigils and soul crush. For all of Dragonflight, it was a very divisive choice between grabbing perma spikes plus last resort or soul crush. Now we can have both.
They were so good, and Dragonflight, it was like Demon Hunter or bust, man. They were so damn fast and so good. And now they fell behind Prot Paladin.
Tanks. The tier set is also one of the better ones. A random meta proc is much better than a random wall proc for any of the other tanks, because meta actually does something other than DR. The Hunt's reset is also quite nice for Aldraki Reaper. It also helps the Demon Hunter Season 1 tier set was bad, so going from a bad set to a good one is actually a huge improvement. This one's gonna go into an easy, solid A tier.
Nice.
Prot Paladin got major nerfs after a dominant Season 1.
I mean,
longer
look,
cooldown on major
anybody who's mad about prop paladin getting nerfed, I mean, my God, it was unbelievable how far and away ahead they were compared to all the other tanks. So you guys got nerfed. I guarantee you're still going to be an A tier. Let's see where he puts you.
after a dominant
You're just not
season
S
1.
anymore.
We're losing a lot of passive tankiness, a bit of damage, and longer cooldown on major cooldowns like Bubble, Lay on Hands, and Spell Warning. Paladins also had a really good Season 1 set, so going from that to their Season 2 set will be a bit of a loss. Despite these nerfs, Paladins should still continue to be one of the best tanks because of their powerful utility. Possible they will fall off at the highest keys due to a lack of survivability, which we don't know yet, and that could knock them down a tier, but for now, I'd consider them a contender for the top tank. This one will be right up there with VDH.
Right, okay, see, nobody feels bad for you. You're still considered a top tank, so don't bitch.
Bear tank had some improvements going to Season 2. The class talent tree is improved, allowing you to take talents like Feline Swiftness, Innervate, and Dispel without sacrificing much. The 2 reworked talents, Reinvigoration and Ursul's Warding, are also an improvement for the tanky build. Honestly, Bear was pretty good this season, and with Prop Paladin taken down a notch, Bear's actually felt pretty good in these dungeons comparatively. I've also noticed Bear is really good in these dungeons with the less tank busters. There's just a whole lot more of just white swings, and Bear does pretty good with Earth Warden, dealing with those types of damage.
That's good.
I'd honestly put Bear right up there with VDH and Prop Paladin, but ultimately it's probably a bit weaker due to Bear damage being complete dog water. Top of B tier.
I mean, Bear, what do they do? One ability? Well, you just keep swiping over. That's all I see bears do. So yeah, it's okay that their damage is not that great. Overall, you're saying there's probably no S tier if demon. Probably not, but there shouldn't be an S tier tank. Because when there's an S tier tank, that means the other tanks are that much shittier than them. I'm fine with this if A tier is the highest. That means everybody's more compacted and close together, and that's how it should be. But Bear tank doing pretty good. Overall, Druid doing pretty good. I think Pharaoh's getting a lot of buffs too, so Druid might be a nice thing to play, whether you want a tank or not.
Be even low A tier. Blood DK can sustain pretty well as always.
There it is.
And does very solid damage. They still lack a rate buff, and they don't have a utility like the better
Most
tanks
important.
do. Honestly, not a lot has changed for Blood DK, but just like
Damn.
Bear, with the tanks being much closer in strength now, DK does quite well relatively. DK will likely struggle in the highest keys, but outside of those, Bear looking insanely good. Personally, I think Blood DK is one of the better pug tanks, assuming you can play it well, but community perceptions matter more than how the class...
Did he say assuming you can play WoW? So he's saying like it takes player skill to play Blood DK. That's what he said. That's why I play Blood DK. There you go, guys. Confirmed. I've got skills.
Actually does for most of you guys. I'm putting this in B tier. Brewmaster got some solid buffs to Celestial
I'll
Brew.
take it. B tier. I feel like last season we were C tier, so I'll take B. I feel like that's an improvement.
It's actually been
That's why you're so
significant
bad.
and feels much better. You can easily pop a max stack Celestial Brew, and Blackout comboing Celestial Brew actually gives you a good sized shield. This class still has the same problem of running out of buttons to live, and doesn't really have anything going for it. It's a solid tank and it's better than before, but just like Blood DK, still a B tier tank. Lastly, Pro Warrior got some major changes. I can't really tell how much of a buff or nerf these changes are going into
There were more buffs yesterday. Prot Warrior got more buffs yesterday, including the 20% buff for them. They're getting a ton of love. So wherever he puts them here, I think that could still change because Prot Warrior literally yesterday got more changes.
Into, but so far I
getting
don't
attention.
like how Pro Warrior feels. It's much harder to sustain the ignored pains, and there's a lot more downtime. More importantly, Warrior feels awful in these dungeons. These dungeons were not designed with Warrior in mind whatsoever. This could change by the time the patch launches, but currently, Warrior feels insanely good until it doesn't. A lot of the damage taken in Season 2 dungeons is taking melee white hits, which is what Warrior's actually really good at. But when faced with bleeds, constant magic hits, and nasty debuffs, Warrior is actually unplayable in some dungeons. As I've mentioned in Season 1 Tank Thoughts, back in the start of the expansion, the dungeons were actually really well designed for Warrior. You had tons of mechanics you could spell reflect, and there weren't many nasty dots or magic hits. Now, however, in the Season 2 dungeons, like Motherload, you have mobs that can stack nasty dots, like the Flame Renders and Grimbatol, or bosses that just do magic damage the whole fight, like first boss of Ruby Life Pools. All in all, I would probably have to put this class in C tier just because of how
Okay, so I mean, we'll take this with a grain of salt, though. I will say I think Warriors have been pushed up to B tier. With all the changes that just went into effect yesterday, their damage and their survivability should be much better. There were some huge changes, huge. Like I'm talking about every single ability got buffed. So I think they're probably more B tier now. Blizzard did know. They basically addressed the fact that yes, Warrior was currently a step down. So I will say Dorky's rankings are pretty much on point. Because Blizzard even knew that Warrior right now is below, so they buffed him yesterday.
Let us lay waste to this realm.
Dramencia, thank you so much for the follow. Welcome to our Scourge.
available it is at the moment in some
Sam is
dungeons.
Z tier.
You could probably play around it if you plan your cooldowns really well and maybe kite some of the bleed mobs, but with how it is at the moment, it's looking really rough. Overall, the tanks are actually much closer than last season.
Yeah, this is good.
Right now,
this is what you want to see. Like we said, nobody's S tier. That's fine with me. If everybody is between A and B, I think that's exactly where you want to be, because that makes everybody viable. Nobody's being left out on invites. No one feels like they have to invite a certain kind of tank. This is good. This is a good state for tanking.
Like, there's no tank that really pops off, and that's why I don't have anything in S tier. Maybe it's just me, but it feels like this is kind of what's missing from the tank role right now. Back in some of the older seasons, it felt like most of the tanks were strong, and now it's the opposite. Most of Legion, and of BFA, and of Shadowlands, for example, tanks felt powerful, and it was some of the most fun I had in M+. As much as I miss the old days, I do think next
say what you want about Shadowlands, I had a lot of fun in Shadowlands tanking. It was fun. You had those big moments, those big dig moments where you were, you know, surviving. You were the last man standing. You'd push that last couple % down of the boss, or you'd finish off that mob in the Mythic Plus. There are no more like last minute heroic stands like that anymore. Basically, when the group is dead, you're fucking you're a goner. And even while you're alive, you're a fucking goner, honestly, because if you get hit with a dot and a tank buster at the same time, you're fucking dead. So Blizzard took basically the fun out of tanking. And that's why a lot of people don't tank right now. They also made life much harder on healers because of what they did to tanks. We'll see if these changes will get reversed. Right now, they're addressing the DPS side of tanking and holding aggro because that's a problem. Maybe eventually they'll address survivability.
Season will be a lot better than the current one. Anyways, that is it for the video. Thank you all very much for watching. I'll try to have more videos for Season 2.
Sam is tier. Oh, man. What a great video. So, 2 things we could take from this video, I would say. 1, tanking's going to be in a much better spot, hopefully, in Season 2. And 2, it's really crazy how much Dorky and I sound alike. I mean, we are almost like twins in terms of our voice, you know, level and everything. That's good to see. So, a nice video from Dorky.